From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots, and welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with our Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our websites are ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com and CCRShow.com. And since it's Monday, joining me on the phone is the patriot from the Hoosier State, my very good friend, J.D. Manier. J.D., welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
As always, great to be back with you on a Monday, Rick.
Great to have you with us, J.D. And, J.D., we've got another jam-packed show, and we've got to really get right into it. We'll start by talking about our guests. At, about 3:20 today, East Coast time, we're going to be speaking with our very good friend Sharon Engel from Nevada. You know, as you all know out there, that in 2010, Sharon ran for the U.S. Senate, should have won. She ran against the Harry Reid, and I still think that voter fraud played a huge part in the outcome of that election. Well, Sharon's going to be joining us to talk about another great patriot out there that we've got to get into the U.S. Senate, and that's Joe Miller. Joe's primary election is tomorrow, and so we're going to have Sharon come on to give a last-minute plug for our good friend Joe Miller. And also, at 3:35, we're going to be talking with Bob Dorigo Jones. Bob serves as a senior fellow for the Center of America. And J.D., Saturday afternoon, taking a little lunch break from all the yard work that my dear bride had me doing, I turned on Fox News, and there was our very good friend, Bob Dorigo Jones, talking about the winner of the 2014 Wacky Label Warning Label Contest. So Bob will be joining us to talk about that. And J.D., who are you going to be speaking with?
You know, at 4 o'clock we have Leslie Ford of the Heritage Foundation, and you remember the Navy removing those Bibles from the hotels? Well, that's been rescinded, but she's going to talk quite a bit about First Amendment rights, and certainly the Obama administration has been attacking them for 5.5 years. And then we've got another special guest, returning guest, Jane Robbins, at 4:30, and she's a senior fellow with the American Principles Project. And Rick, the kids are back in school, and so we're going to have a great rundown on the latest on Common Core and the effort to defund and remove Common Core across this country. And I think we just got a great show. I
do too. You know, J.D., it's going to be very interesting speaking with Lisa Ford from the Heritage Foundation. I want to ask her, how much did pressure from we the people putting on the Navy, how much did that help in turning around their decision to remove Bibles? And J.D., you're part of the Gideons, and the Gideons are renowned for putting Bibles in hotel rooms. So I know you want to talk about that. And also, Jane Robbins talking about Common Core. J.D., seems like the more people find out about Common Core, the less they like it.
Yeah, they do, and they're upset when they know the truth. It really riles the parents, and we're glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, J.D., as you said, in many parts of the country, kids are back in school already. that means that fall is coming and something else happens in fall is hunting season. And I know a lot of our listeners out there are avid hunters, and I know you have a few words to say about the deer population. So, J.D., take it away.
Well, thank you, Rick. And I've titled this little commentary, "What Does It Matter, Deer?" And my wife, Christine, and I attended a landmark court case about this time last year that ruled solidly in favor of private deer hunting preserves and farms here in Indiana. We listened to counsel representing the DNR claim all deer in Indiana were owned by the state. Pardon the pun, but Judge Evans shot holes in their argument with his ruling relying on statute and Article 3, Section 1 of the Indiana Constitution. In a few weeks from now, the DNR will have their appeal to Judge Evans' ruling brought to court by the Attorney General of Indiana. In the meantime, a strongly left-leaning four-part series on the deer and elk industry has been printed by the Indianapolis Star newspaper here, claiming they spread disease across the country and cost taxpayers millions of dollars. When I recently interviewed Rodney Bruce here on the Conservative Commandos Radio show of Whitetail Bluff, he was the plaintiff last year in that landmark court case that had taken 8 years to resolve, now going on 9 years because of the appeal. I took issue with a circle diagram printed by the Star, claiming to pinpoint a disease in the most northwest county in the state of Nebraska. They showed 38% chronic waste disease infection rate within a 1,500-acre preserve and found less and less infection as they tested increasingly miles and miles outside the preserve, where they found no incidences of disease in the outside rings, which included 2 small towns, one of which is the county seat up there. This, they wrote, suggests the disease originated in the preserve. The preserve owner, on the other hand, claimed the disease came from wild animals infecting his herd. I noticed the article also had national maps, though, with historical charts showing this area of the country had some of the most rampant cases of chronic waste disease in the wild in parts of Wyoming and South Dakota, which directly bordered the Nebraska county where the preserve was located. Chronic waste disease, or CWD for short, was found heavily in the wild before the private preserve herd became infected. When you test a herd contained within a fence in a 1,500-acre compound, you're going to be able to track every animal. But when you test in the wild, encompassing multiple square miles, common sense dictates you won't be able to test every animal, especially when they are free to range anywhere they want to go. In addition, the instances of finding any wild deer in a town are going to be much less than in open country and forests. One wonders if the Star reporters had been around Native American tribes a couple of centuries ago and found high instances of white man's disease in their lodges, killing them off at prodigious rates, but less and less infection rates in neighboring colonial towns, they would have urged Ben Franklin to write in his Saturday Evening Post, suggesting they had strong evidence the diseases originated in the Indian teepees. The newspaper points out millions of tax dollars have been spent on the deer industry also, but doesn't offer up any notion of how many tax dollars have been created by the industry that grosses over $3 billion a year, creating thousands of jobs. They spent quite a bit of ink intimating hunting on private preserves isn't really hunting at all, and it isn't ethical. Well, I've looked into the quality of life differences for the animals in preserves and on state parks, and some of the comparisons are striking. The average life expectancy of the deer in the preserves is over 3 years old, but in the state parks it's about 1.5 years, where often the bucks barely even have their first set of antlers before the hunters take them. Prior to the hunt, the preserve animals have veterinary care. They're dewormed, vaccinated, and have excellent food and water. The state park deer face coyotes, disease, automobiles, and sometimes drought and famine. Now, post-hunt, the preserve deer are always tracked and found once shot, and they are immediately processed with their meat often going to local food banks. Unfortunately, the state park animals sometimes run and slowly bleed to death. A high-ranking officer in our State Rifle and Pistol Association once told me he found a deer walking in a state park with an arrow through its neck. As we close, I want to point out, the private preserves offer many amenities to wounded warriors, people with disabilities, and senior citizens, sportsmen who otherwise wouldn't be able to partake in deer hunting. What is dear to them should not be taken away by the heavy hand of government, aided once again by liberal media taking pot shots at private industry. Back to you, Rick.
Well, JD, government wants to own everything. They want to own the deer. They want to own the turkeys. They want to own the fish. They want to own the rain. And I think that there is a higher authority, JD, that should have first dibs on these things. Don't you?
Absolutely.
And it's crazy. Then they want to license everything. They want to license hunting. They want to license fishing. They want to control the fish. They want to control the wildlife. They want to control the rain. My question to them, JD, is this. For instance, out in Oregon, a couple years ago, we had a guy here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, was arrested because he had water retention ponds on his property. Okay? So if the states and the governments want to control water or think they should have the right to own it, so if that water does damage to my house, can I then sue the state? I don't know, JD. Just food for thought. Hey, JD, we're up against the break. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with JD Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. The way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet with our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget you can also hear our show anytime, day or night from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our websites are ConservativeCommandosRadioshow.com and CCRShow.com. Today's show, like all our shows, is brought to you by the First Amendment, and it is protected by the Second.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
You know, no one exposes the issues, liberalism, and the mainstream media like the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Our view for conservative values and issues, take positive action to restore them in our country.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with J.D. Manier and Rick Schrader. And if you'd like to hear a repeat broadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening Eastern Time, log on to vigilantlibertyradio.us. That's vigilantlibertyradio.us. And for a rebroadcast of last Friday's Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 5 p.m. this afternoon Eastern Time, right after our live broadcast ends, log on to CPRWorldwideMedia.com, CPRWorldwideMedia.com. And now you can hear the Conservative Commandos Radio Show from any telephone, anywhere, at any time, by calling 832-999-1199. And we'd like to welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show a very good friend of ours, a very good friend of the show. In fact, she's a co-host here on the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, the patriot from the battle-born state of Nevada, our very own Sharon Engel. Sharon, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thanks. Good to be talking with you, Rick and JD. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Alaska race. Tomorrow is the primary in Alaska, and we've got our good friend Joe Miller, who's running in that race, and of course we're supporting him. So I wanted to talk just a little bit to you and JD about that race.
Well, I'm glad we can, Sharon. And as you said, Joe Miller is one of us. He is one of the true conservative Republicans out there. A man that we need in the U.S. Senate, along with people like our very own Kevin Wade. Sharon, this Senate race is extremely important to our country. But it's also extremely important that we do get true conservatives like Joe Miller and Kevin Wade, both in the U.S. Senate. And tomorrow is Joe Miller's primary election. And I think, Sharon, it's going to hinge upon people like you and me and JD getting the word out, encouraging people to get out to the polls tomorrow and pulling a lever for Joe Miller. What's your take?
Well, it's not just about that. You know, Joe Miller's going to need our support. If he's able to win this election tomorrow, he needs our help on the ground as soon as he wins the election. So we can't stop. We can't even slow down. We're pretty sure that Joe's got a good handle on this election. He's running against two establishment Republicans who supported Lisa Murkowski and still support her. And as you know, Lisa Murkowski votes about 62% of the time with Harry Reid. So anybody that supports Lisa's principles is a supporter of Harry Reid's as far as we're concerned. But you can go to joeforliberty.com, joeforliberty.com, and pledge some support there. If you're not able to vote in Alaska, this is a good way, you know. $10 or $20 always helps get things out there on the air, as JD knows, having run here recently. And, of course, you can support our super PAC at ourvoice.pac.com if you want to help us. And you can also go to ourvoicepac.com and see what we've been doing in Alaska on behalf of Joe Miller's campaign. We've got a commercial up there and a mailing that we've done so people can see just where their money goes. And, of course, that's the name of this game, isn't it, J.D.? Money is the mother's milk of politics.
Well, it is, and I just found out Sarah Palin is endorsing him, so that should help.
Yes, Sarah Palin is endorsing him. So is Mike Huckabee, Mark Levin, Lars Larson, Joe Arpaio. Lots of really strong constitutional conservatives in this nation have seen what I've seen and what we've all seen at Conservative Commandos Radio, that the constitutional conservative in this race is Joe Miller, and he's the one that we should be supporting, even though the establishment has gone squarely behind his other two opponents. Joe Miller is the conservative, and we as conservatives across this nation need to be putting in support for Joe Miller by going to joeforliberty.com or ourvoicepack.com.
You know, J.D. and Sharon, the other way that we conservatives need to help Joe Miller is by sending a donation. He needs those funds to help get his message out. He needs those funds to help get his voters out. And you know, Sharon, when you talk about the other two Republicans in this race supporting Lisa Murkowski, if you had video, if this was a video program or had video phone, you'd see me sitting here not just with 3 days of growth on my face, but shaking my head. Like, it's Lisa Murkowski. I mean, she is not a Republican. She's not even, she's way on the other side of being a Republican.
Well, and if anyone watched that 2010 race where Joe Miller actually defeated Lisa Murkowski in the primary, they would see that the establishment came in and supported her. Now, these are establishment Republicans, came in and supported her as an independent candidate, not as a Republican, but an independent candidate running against Joe Miller in the general election. And then outrageously, when she was able to get that election through a write-in vote, which, all of this just smacks of something's not quite right in Alaska's elections, but she was able to win that through a write-in vote. When she got back to Washington, D.C., they welcomed her. The establishment welcomed her back into the Republican caucus, even though she'd won that race as an independent. So what goes on here in Washington, D.C. is just highlighted by the facts around the Joe Miller race in 2010 and Lisa Murkowski. So anyone supporting Lisa Murkowski, as you say, it just makes you shake your head. But if you'd like to see a good commercial about that, go to ourvoicepack.com and you can see the commercial that we paid for to go out in Alaska. And of course, you're right. We do need those donations. It's not over till it's over, like Yogi Berra said. And today is the day before. Today, we're going to be sending some robocalls in. I know people hate to hear robocalls, but they actually are fairly effective. People do listen to them. And if they haven't made up their mind yet, sometimes that call will make that difference. So you can support that robocall today at ourvoicepack.com. I don't know, of course, because we can't coordinate with the Joe Miller campaign, don't know what he's up to today. But as you say, people donating anytime can help a campaign really get off the ground, and in these last few hours before the election can really help.
You know, Sharon and J.D., we're going to go to our break a little bit later today because this is such an important issue. So let's just take a couple more minutes, Sharon, if we could, and let's just talk about how important it is to get Republicans, but good, solid, conservative Republicans in the Senate to knock Harry Reid off from that top step.
You're exactly right, Rick. If we've got Republicans that are voting with Harry Reid, it's counterproductive. We need strong Republicans who will actually stand up and say no to Harry Reid. We can't afford to have Republicans just looking the other way when he brings these amnesty bills by. We can't have them say, well, we need to reach across the aisle. No, we're way past. We're way past reaching across the aisles with these guys. We've seen Harry Reid. He is the villain in all of this work that's being done in Washington, D.C. now. Obama could not have gotten Obamacare passed if he didn't have Harry Reid. And that's why we've got to send strong senators to Washington, D.C. who are willing to hold the line against this guy.
Well, and I want to add to everybody, it's just going to take 6 to flip the Senate to the Republican side and get rid of Harry Reid. On the other hand, it's within our grasp of the Heritage Foundation to get 13. to get 13, and we would have a veto-proof Senate.
That would be phenomenal. Hey, Sharon, I want to thank you so much for calling in today here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Thanks for calling in and reminding our listeners to get out there and support Joe Miller. And Sharon, give out those websites one last time, if you would, please.
If they're wanting to donate directly to Joe, they need to go to joeforliberty.com. If they want to donate and help our PAC, it is ourvoicepac.com.
Sharon Engel, thanks so much for joining us today, and we will speak with you again Thursday afternoon.
Yes, we will.
Let's hope and pray that the good Lord is with Joe Miller tomorrow. But we are going to take a break right now. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and around the world on the Internet with our Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
You know, no one exposes the issues, liberalism, and the mainstream media like the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Our view for conservative values and issues, take positive action to restore them in our country.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And if you'd like to hear a repeat broadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening, Eastern Time, log on to vigilantlibерtyradio.us. And if you'd like to hear a repeat broadcast of last Friday's show at 5 p.m. when our live broadcast ends, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. Don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Well, JD, it was a beautiful day last Saturday afternoon. I was out working in the yard. I came in to take a lunch break. I turned on Fox News. The John Stossel was on, and I saw a very familiar face and heard a very familiar voice, and that is of our next guest. Bob Dorigo Jones serves as a senior fellow for the Center for America and is the author of the best-selling Remove Child Before Folding, the 101 Stupidest, Silliest, and Wackiest Warning Labels Ever. Bob Jones, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Rick, nice to be on your show again. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. And Bob, as I was saying, saw you on John Stossel the other day.
Yeah, the last time I was on your show back in early July, we had announced the finalists, and then we went on John Stossel's show and let his audience pick the 3 cash prize winners, and that's what you saw.
And tell our audience who the winner was and remind them about what the whacking warning label was.
Yes, well, just so your audience knows that every year people from around the country send us the funniest warning labels that they find around the house, and we take the 5 funniest that we pick and let John Stossel's audience pick the $1,000 grand prize winner. So if any of your listeners have some funny warning labels, there's a good financial incentive to send them to us. That they can do that by going to our website, centerforamerica.org. And this one, this year, the 3 finalists were a little unusual. In the past, we've had warning labels like the head scratcher that's on a fishing lure that says, warning, armful of swallowed. Something like that that's just like a knee slapper, or the scooter that the kids love to use that says, warning, this product moves when used. This year is a little different. The audience picked an unusual warning label. It was on a cell phone battery booster, and it warns, get rid of children. Well, that could mean probably a lot of different things. And this, I think, falls into a new trend that we're seeing, is that as warning labels become longer and longer, foreign manufacturers are having a hard time keeping up with the warning labels that they think will protect them from being sued, because they don't have to worry about being sued in any other country they sell their product, whether it's Europe, Asia, or anywhere else. But in America, they do, and some of the warning labels now are pretty hilarious that come from a lot of the Asian countries. And get rid of children just makes you wonder what that could have been referring to.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Bob. Every time I hear it, I chuckle and kind of scratch my head a little bit and wonder, what does that have to do with a booster? A cell phone booster battery. I mean, I just don't see the connection.
Well, it's probably a mistranslation, and we see a lot of those. We actually get a lot of them sent to us, and we use some of them. And I think, but this one is funny because it illustrates that, and it lets us talk about the fact that you really don't see these warning labels in other countries. Most of us in America have grown up with knowing that we live in the most lawsuit-happy society on earth, and we know that there are warnings on virtually everything we buy. One of my favorites was a baby stroller that says, remove child before folding. Kind of along the same line, get rid of children, I guess. But
well, Bob, a lot especially, every summer we hear about parents leaving their children in locked cars and they die because of the heat. And I don't know, maybe parents are getting so stupid they have to be warned about removing their child before folding. I don't know, Bob.
I don't know.
Hey, Bob, who was the winner? Who was the winner this year?
Yeah, the winner came to us from California, a guy named Larry Klein from Costa Mesa, California. He gets $1,000. The third place runner-up, which gets $250, was actually my personal favorite. It's on a sheet of peel and stick decals.
Yeah.
These were sent out to fans of the Buffalo Bills. Great little decals that you can put on your bike helmet, maybe skateboard, something like that. But it says, warning, decals are for decoration only and will not prevent bodily harm or injury.
Bob, that was my favorite. You and
me both then.
Yeah, that was my favorite. I mean, geez.
I love that. That came to us from New York, a guy named Tim Weibel from Grand Island, New York. And that's going to be one of our classics, I think, because, of course, these are little flimsy, almost like a paperish type of sticker. And we all know that's not going to protect us from any kind of injury, but they felt that they needed to put it there to protect, not only, because here's the thing, we talk about this all over the country and the world when we do our interviews, is warning labels in America don't just have to protect consumers anymore, they have to protect the manufacturers from frivolous lawsuits.
I think that more than anything.
Yes.
Today, this is, as litigious as this society is, especially in the garbage state of New Jersey, where there's more lawyers per capita than anywhere else, that I think more and more it's the manufacturers that need to be protected more than the consumer. I would think, and I say that, Bob Dorigo-Jones, because the consumer should be able to look at a sticker, at a decal, and know that's not going to protect you from an injury.
Absolutely. But the legal system is being manipulated by some attorney who will hear about an injury and chide somebody into filing a lawsuit. We hear that a lot, and that's one thing that really irritates a lot of us, is that people will get injured. I just had a woman the other day call me, and she wanted to send us a check she got as a settlement because somebody had heard that she had gotten bitten by a dog, and it was an attorney calling to offer his services to sue the dog owner. And she was really offended. Now, of course, a lot of dog bites would probably be a legitimate injury, and you'd have a claim against somebody. But this apparently wasn't the case, and she really resented the fact that this lawyer wanted to go after somebody when they didn't even really know the facts. And
hey, Bob, before we go to a break, we got about a minute before we go to break. I wanted to segue from the stickers of a football helmet to an actual football helmet, and that was your second place winner.
Yes, the second place winner was on a regulation football helmet. It said, and now the first part is normal. No helmet system can protect you from serious brain and or neck injuries, including paralysis or death. And then it says, to avoid these risks, do not engage in the sport of football. So the manufacturer feels like they have to tell you not to use their product.
Well, that was pretty good advice. Hey, Bob, we got to take a short break. Could you hold through, please?
Absolutely.
All right, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet with our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioShow.com and CCRShow.com. Our guest this segment is Bob Dorigo-Jones, Senior Fellow at the Center for America.
Listen up, Christians. God has a couple of questions. Is it okay with you that atheists kick Christ out of schools and government? Godstickers.com. Is it okay with you if atheists take over America and mock God? Godstickers.com. Are you ready to fight back and unleash the gospel of Jesus Christ to 30,000 drivers per year on the streets of America? Then get a car magnet from Godstickers.com. Atheists can run from God's Word on Sunday, but they still have to read your bumper on Monday. All car magnet sales donated to missingpets.com. Are you ready to make America do a U-turn? Visit godstickers.com today and unleash the Word of God on America's highways. Godstickers.com car magnets. God's Word on the street.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with JD and Rick. And for a repeat broadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening, Eastern Time, log on to vigilantlibertyradio.us. And at 5 p.m. this afternoon, right as we end our live broadcast, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of last Friday's show, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com and you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Bob Dorico Jones, Senior Fellow for the Center for America. Bob's appeared on dozens of national and international TV and radio programs, including NBC Nightly News, ABC's 2020, BBC World News, and we could go on and on and on. Hey, Bob, it's the Little League World Series is going on. In fact, a team from right here in Philadelphia has the star of the Little League World Series so far, Monet Davis. And what we're going to do, Bob, is we're going to play one of your Let's Be Fair spots about baseball. So, John, please put them back on hold and play the spot.
I'm Bob Dorico Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. In the 1970s, baseball leagues for kids started using aluminum bats to save money and to increase safety. Wooden bats can become dangerous projectiles when they splinter and fly through the air. Aluminum bats don't do that. Despite the injuries that have been prevented by aluminum bats, manufacturers of these bats have been sued in recent years by lawyers who argue that the bats are defective. Why? Because they can hit a ball faster than wooden bats. In one case, lawyers convinced a jury that a bat maker should pay nearly $1 million to the family of a boy hit by a line drive. Yet, after an appeal, the verdict was overturned, and a federal court has said there's no proof that aluminum bats are any more dangerous than wooden ones. Let's be fair. The next thing we know, these lawyers will want leagues to use foam rubber bats. But baseball involves risk, just like everything else in life. And lawsuits like this won't make baseball better, just more expensive. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamerica.org.
Okay, Bob Dorico Jones, there you go. Let's be fair, aluminum bats. I mean, Bob, it seems like sports are really a target from these lawyers. I remember a couple of years ago we had you on talking about a lawsuit that happened right here in New Jersey where two little leaguers playing catch, one of them overthrew the other guy and hit somebody, and the kid got sued.
Right, and there was no malicious intent. They weren't being reckless or, doing anything that was purposely endangering anybody. It was just one of these accidents. And the problem with a lot of these lawsuits that we talk about every week is that the lawyers seem to be arguing that we should live in a totally risk-free society and that when things happen, somebody has to pay. Well, the problem with that is that it's piling huge costs on all of us. And when I first started this, the president of Little League of America told me that they pay more money in liability insurance every year just to protect themselves from lawsuits than they do on bats, balls, gloves, and all their equipment combined. That's just not right.
Hey, Bob, have you bought a baseball bat lately?
I've bought, when my kids were a little younger, maybe about 5 years ago, yes.
I'll tell you, in the day, back about 1 million years ago, I used to play some semi-pro ball. Bob, my favorite bat was a Jackie Robinson model. Had a nice thick handle. I love the thick handle bat, okay?
Yeah.
Same bat Carl Yastrzemski used. Carl Yastrzemski used a thick handle bat. Well, not too long ago, I went online to see if I could buy them. They're about $50-$60 today, Bob.
Oh, bats are very, very expensive, and the litigation and the liability insurance is a big reason for that. My favorite bat was a Johnny Bench bat. I love that bat, and I wish I could find that today. But the aluminum bats were made and brought into the Little League because when a bat breaks, it is a danger to the kids on the infield. They don't move as quickly and get hurt. So the Little League brought those in as a safety measure. So it's very ironic now that they're being sued by somebody claiming that they're less safe than wooden bats.
That's incredible. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're speaking with Bob DeRigo Jones. He's a senior fellow at the Center for America. Love having Bob on. He always brings his Let's Be Fair commentaries here to Conservative Commandos radio show. Hey, Bob, on the other line, I do have my co-host, J.D. Manier, and J.D. wants to get in this conversation. J.D.?
Hey, Bob, does Obamacare have a warning label?
A lot of people think it should have one, a real big, probably 200-point bold warning label.
It sure should. But have you had any winners from some of these prescription pills? Because I watch some of these TV commercials, and the list of side effects, runs all the way down my sleeve and out the door.
That's a terrific question. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, we had a warning label from a bottle of sleeping pills, and it warned, caution, may cause drowsiness.
Oh, my God.
That's one of my favorites.
What about presidential executive orders? Can we get some warning labels with them?
Yeah, when they passed that Health Care Act, we said that if they had just gotten serious about medical malpractice reform and all of the defensive medicine that's practiced to protect doctors from being sued, we go in for a headache and they run all kinds of tests because they're so afraid they're going to get sued if something comes up, we could have eliminated, and according to some estimates, even the federal government a few years ago estimated that defensive medicine costs over $100 billion a year in the United States. Just think how many people we could provide health care for if we just tackled that problem. But no, the trial lawyers don't want that, and they spend a lot of money on elections.
Hey, Bob, last year, right about this time, I had another hip transplant. And you're right, Bob. Before they would do the hip transplant, the hip replacement, I had to go through a battery of tests, not just blood tests and things, but like EKGs, x-rays, not of my hip, but of my head, my chest, and everywhere else. It was incredible the tests that I had to take to get a hip replaced.
Yes, it drives up the cost of our medical care so much. And again, this isn't an issue that they have in the other countries that we compete with for jobs, whether it's England, France, Japan, and so on. It's unique to America, and it doesn't have to be this way. I don't know if we've ever talked about the lawsuit tax, but if the level of litigation in America was just simply the same as it was other places, we could save $580 billion every year. And so that's not saying get rid of all lawsuits, because we know there's a lot of legitimate lawsuits. We're just saying get rid of the excessive litigation.
And that's why we need a loser pay system. Hey, Bob, Japan has a loser's pay system, don't they?
Yes. As a matter of fact, every other industrialized advanced country in the world has a loser pay system, which means that if you sue somebody and lose, you're going to pay their legal bills. So it's a strong disincentive to sue somebody if you've got a frivolous case.
Hey, Bob, we got time for one more of your Let's Be Fair. Should we do the coins or the garden?
I like the coins.
All right, the coins. John Forsythe Jr., play the coins. Put you guys back on hold so you can hear it.
I'm Bob DeRigo Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. Can someone who loses a lawsuit pay their debt in small coins? That's exactly what happened after a California man sued an insurance company. The man claimed an employee of the insurance company assaulted him, and then he filed a lawsuit. The company denied any wrongdoing, but eventually settled the lawsuit for more than $20,000. Instead of sending the man a check for the full amount, however, the company sent him more than a dozen buckets filled with nickels, dimes, quarters, and pennies. Now, I know that lawsuits can cause hard feelings, but let's be fair. This payment of a settlement in coins reveals something about the level of frustration with the amount of litigation in America today. This isn't the first time a lawsuit award or settlement has been paid in coins. But imagine the risks. Was there enough paid by coin? And what if someone gets injured lifting those heavy buckets? You can bet there's no shortage of personal injury lawyers out there who would take that case. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamerica.org.
So, Bob, I guess this was your typical example of nickel and diming someone to death?
That's great. Yeah, I really like that topic because we talk to so many people that have been put through the ringer on frivolous cases that cost them their life savings or tens of thousands of dollars that are ultimately dismissed from court. Mind you, these are cases that have no merit. Judges agree with them, but to get to that point, they spend so much money that they don't feel like they've won anything. So a lot of times, in 9 out of 10 cases in America are settled. So I don't know enough about the case involved here, whether the insurance company employee really did harass somebody or not. But they felt a need to settle, and they sent the coins. And I just know that all of the people that have gone through frivolous lawsuits and had to defend themselves would love to pay in coins when they eventually have to settle cases that should be worth nothing, because it is such a frustrating thing. And I was all set to recommend it, but then I thought, you know what? There's two problems with that. If you send somebody a bunch of coins, there's no real proof about how many pennies or nickels or dimes were in those buckets. And the other thing is, and I didn't have time to go into it in that commentary, the guy who they sent all those buckets to had actually just had a hernia operation. So can you imagine him picking up those coins in those buckets and then having another hernia and suing them again?
Well, Bob, in this cashless society where paper money has less and less value, maybe there is some value of getting your debts paid off in coins. I don't know, Bob.
Well, a lot of people would like to do that with our taxes, too. Unfortunately, we can't do that.
Yeah, talking about nickel and diming us to death. Hey, Bob DeRigo-Jones, always great having you here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Please tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can send wacky warning labels and follow your work and your Let's Be Fair commentaries.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, if they'd like to catch a clip of the John Stossel show, we have that on our website, which is centerforamerica.org. They can see these funny warning labels and the products that were in the contest and see how they might be able to enter.
Bob, it was interesting. You mentioned that John Stossel thing. John Stossel, in fact, had been sued, and in the end, the guy that sued him had to pay like almost $300,000 to John Stossel and ABC, but in the end, he ended up in jail. He and his daughter ended up in jail.
Yeah, right. So the only ones that really win, because I'll tell you, John did not feel like he won, are the lawyers, because they walk away with a lot of money.
Bob DeRigo-Jones, got to run up against the break. Bob, always great having you on with us. Keep sending the clips, and we'll keep having you on.
Thanks, Rick. Take good care.
Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Going to take a break. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader. We're coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with our internet broadcast partner, CPR Worldwide Media, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And you can hear our show from any phone by calling 832-999-1199 anytime, day or night. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Lisa Ford from the Heritage Foundation.
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
You know, no one exposes the issues, liberalism, and the mainstream media like the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Our view for conservative values and issues, take positive action to restore them in our country.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com. And make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers. (9/11). It's a day that will go down in our history as the most horrific and destructive scene ever to happen on American soil. It will also be, for most Americans who witnessed it either up close or simply watched in horror on TV, America, to participate in a national memorial I call the United Action of Prayer this coming 9/11 and every 9/11 from then on. United Action of Prayer is simply every American stopping whatever they are doing for 1 minute at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or pray in memory for the 9/11 victims and their families, and perhaps a prayer of gratitude for living in a country where even 9/11 could not at all weaken the spirit of our great nation. If you're in a crash and have little cash, come to AJ Auto Body. We handle insurance claims fast, and repairs are guaranteed to last at AJ Auto Body. Come check us out, and without a doubt, you'll be satisfied. That's AJ Auto Body, 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. Family owned and operated for 30 years. We are a fully licensed and insured auto repair facility located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. We are your friend in the business. So stop in for a free estimate or call us at 856-251-0096. Check us out on the web at www.ajautobody.net. That's where you'll find our specials, discounts, and coupons. For all your car needs, come to AJ Auto Body, located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. 856-251-0096.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening Eastern Time, log on to www.vigilantlibertyradio.us. For a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to www.cprworldwidemedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at any time, any day, by calling 832-999-1199. Well, our next guest, Leslie Ford of the Heritage Foundation, is a researcher with the DeVos Center for Religion and Civil Society. It's an institute for family, community, and opportunity with the Heritage Foundation. We welcome you to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, Leslie.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Hey, I was reading your article. It was in the Daily Signal last week, and the question is the Navy removing Bibles from the hotel rooms? Comment on that article and what's happened since you first published it.
So last week we discovered that the Navy Lodge had issued a new memo saying that they were considering removing all of the Gideon Bibles from their Navy Lodge hotels, essentially. And last week we wrote an article about it saying, why are they doing this? This doesn't violate the Establishment Clause. And then as of Thursday last week, the Navy spokesman said that they're going to be replacing all the Bibles back in the hotels while this is under consideration. But it's still up in the air as what the final decision is going to be.
Well, you know, this has been a pattern, hasn't it?
Yes, this has been a pattern. So in 2012, we saw this same situation happen with the Air Force. An atheist organization contacted the Air Force and said that Air Force members are offended by the presence of Bibles in the hotels. And then the Air Force took that under consideration and said, wait, are they? And decided to issue a memo saying we're going to remove all the Bibles from the hotels. And after this became public knowledge and Congress got involved saying, no, Bibles don't violate the Establishment Clause. The Air Force rescinded the memo, and now Bibles are back in the hotels. But it hasn't just stopped there. In 2011, we saw a similar situation with the Walter Reed Medical Center, and it was a memo for all the wounded the ill who are in the medical center, and it said that no religious items, i.e. Bibles, reading materials, and or artifacts, were allowed to be used or given away during a visit, from family or even a priest or anything like that. So once Representative Steve King got involved, this was also rescinded.
Well, we have seen an incredible pattern on the Obama administration like this. I'm a Gideon and an officer here in Indianapolis in the ministry. And when he became president, then in 2009, for about 13 years, and for years even prior to my joining this organization, we would deliver at Fort Benjamin Harrison, the MEPS Center, those testaments, and shippers could freely take them, and they would take them right out of my hand, and usually 100 at a time, about 5:30 in the morning. Well, Obama's team came after Fort Benjamin Harrison. This is a 69-year or 70-some-year-old tradition. Started with FDR. Franklin Roosevelt wrote intro to the Gideon Testaments, and they were placed all across the continents in World War II, across the globe. But sure enough, Obama, for 1 month, we didn't have any distributions. And we just like you were talking, tried to rally the troops, and the Commandant eventually let us, as it stands today, we can put them in a box, and they're in the corner in one of the cafeterias. We used to be able to hand them out in person, but go ahead. I'm sorry, Leslie, but as you can tell, this really touches me, and so thankful you come on the show. Talk more about what people are doing and to go forward here.
Definitely, I think the most important thing is awareness. So all of these with the Walter Reed Medical Center, with the Air Force, with the Navy. These things generally snuck under the radar until the public became aware of it. And Congress got involved and started sending letters to the Navy and asking questions like, why are you first responding to this atheist organization who's hostile to religion? Why hasn't this gone up to Navy leadership? In fact, when the Navy decided to rescind the order to remove all the Bibles, they said that this order hadn't gone up the ranks in Navy leadership. So it's important that when the public becomes aware of this, that these decisions that could possibly be hostile to one religion, they have to go up all the way up in the ranks to make sure that they don't violate the Establishment Clause.
Hey, JD, can I jump in for a minute? Leslie, so this decision didn't go up the ranks?
This decision didn't. It came from the director of the Navy Lodge. It didn't go up to the top of Navy leadership. That's
got me scratching my head, Leslie. And let me ask, while I interrupted JD, sorry, JD. Leslie, where do you think this is coming from? Do you think this is coming from pressure from atheist groups, or is it the Obama administration, or are they working together on this?
These kind of complaints are coming directly from atheist groups. This one with the Navy came from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. This is a foundation of what they call themselves free thinkers, but they're atheists, and they believe that the government should have nothing to do with religion.
Well, where is this decision coming from, Leslie?
So on March 12th, 2014, FFRF, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, sent a letter to NEXCOM, the Navy Exchange Service, and they said that 2 of their members, 2 Navy men, had been in a hotel room, one of the Navy lodges that had a Bible, and it offended them. And they said that this therefore conflicted with the Establishment Clause. Now, this isn't the case at all. The Supreme Court has been very clear that this Establishment Clause violation is not whenever anyone experiences some sort of affront from the expression of contrary views. And the government doesn't have to scrub itself from religious expression.
Well, you know, Leslie, and we've talked about this a lot here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, that in my opinion, the precedent for having religion in our government goes all the way back to the Continental Congress, where they never started a meeting, never started a get-together, that they didn't start it with prayer.
And we still see that in Congress today. Congress still kicks off with a minister coming in to open in prayer.
Unbelievable. Leslie, has there been any public outrage?
Yes, for the Walter Reed Medical Center, for the Air Force, for the Navy, there's been public outrage on each of these occasions. I've heard that people have called the congressman, people have been writing to the Navy itself, and just questioning, why do you believe that the Establishment Clause says that government has to scrub itself of any religion? And that's just not true.
You know what, Leslie and JD, and then I'll swing it back to you, JD. Sorry, I interrupted. I'm offended that they're offended. So where do I go to register my being offended?
Oh, I don't know.
Back to you, JD.
Well, hey, Leslie, you know, this FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation, talk a little bit, you know, they are in cahoots with the IRS now. Obama has allowed them to be kind of the watchdog over the churches. Can you talk about that a little bit?
There has been a general narrowing of what religious freedom means from the Obama administration. Just the idea that it could be merely freedom to worship, which is an hour or 2 on the weekend and doesn't extend into all 7 days of the week. Whereas we know that freedom of religion is every day of the week. And there has been some questioning with the IRS of whether they're targeting religious organizations, and that's still under review in Congress right now.
Yeah, I heard that like last week or recently, the FFR, they sued the IRS, and then they pulled it back, and then they recall, I think, a 93 or 96 law that doesn't allow chaplains, pastors anywhere leading up to an election to speak out of their views, political views, and so none of this was the way it was in like 1954 and prior to. But you know, we have about 1 minute, and we've got a break, Leslie, and then we want you to come back.
Okay.
But how can people, because I really loved your articles, how can people get information and get your reports? What website do they go to?
Well, I publish on dailysignal.org, and one of the great ways to be informed about this is either American Family Association, FRC, Family Research Council, or the Chaplains Alliance. They're a wonderful organization for keeping in tune with this kind of religious issues related to religious freedom in the military.
Well, we've got to take a short break, and then we want to bring you back and continue on this great conversation. And thank you so much.
All right, that sounds great.
Okay, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, as we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the Internet. Check out our Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Also, check out our websites, Conservative Commandos, radioshow.com and ccrshow.com. Please don't go away. We're speaking with Leslie Ford of the Heritage Foundation.
Listen up, Christians. God has a couple of questions. Is it okay with you that atheists kick Christ out of schools and government? Godstickers.com. Is it okay with you if atheists take over America and mock God? Godstickers.com. Are you ready to fight back and unleash the gospel of Jesus Christ to 30,000 drivers per year on the streets of America? Then get a car magnet from Godstickers.com. Atheists can run from God's Word on Sunday, but they still have to read your bumper on Monday. All car magnet sales donated to MissingPets.com. Are you ready to make America do a U-turn? Visit Godstickers.com today and unleash the Word of God on America's highways. Godstickers.com car magnets. God's Word on the street.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear rebroadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening Eastern Time, log on to www.vigilantlibertyradio.us. And for a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos radio show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to www.cprworldwidemedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show anytime, any day by calling 832-999-1199. Well, we're back with Leslie Ford of the Heritage Foundation. And welcome back, Leslie.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
I really enjoyed reading your article, and you quote retired Army Reserve Chaplain Ron Cruz.
Yes, Colonel Ron Cruz.
You want to explain that a little bit, what he had to say on this issue?
So Colonel Cruz has been watching these kind of issues for a while. With the Air Force, he was one of the first ones to bring it up and let everyone know what was going on. And he had to say that there's nothing wrong with allowing the Gideons to place the Bibles in Navy lodges. This is at no cost to the Navy. They've done it at decades for no cost, and you mentioned that you're one of the Gideon International. And what's important to recognize is that these Bibles are a source of comfort for men and women who are often away from home for long periods of time. These are permanent change of station orders, and it's perfectly constitutional to allow the Gideons to place the Bibles in the hotel room.
You know, George Washington asked Congress for funds to supply Bibles, and Rick was alluding to our long-standing tradition in America of we put our money where our mouths are many times. And you want to talk more about, it's just preposterous, and I think darn right evil that these folks would say it's an offense and we're going to remove away all these religious materials, these Bibles, so no one can even touch them if they want to.
Exactly. So when men and women go into the military, they don't somehow give up their civil rights, their right to freedom of religion, and that's one of the reasons that the chaplaincy is so important. So when a man or woman goes into conflict, goes into combat, they have this source of comfort, the ability to practice their religion. And it's very important that in this context, in the military context, when everything is run by the government in this context, that we have accommodations for military men and women. And one of these accommodations is allowing all faiths to provide sources of comfort. And these Gideon Bibles are a source of comfort for these men and women. And it's very important that the Navy, the Air Force, all branches of the military allow the Gideons to provide this service, really. It's a service for these men and women.
You know, I've read and been told that this tradition started in World War II. Mm-hmm. President Roosevelt wrote the intro to the Gideon Testaments, and it really started, I guess, out at Pearl Harbor in about a week or just 2 weeks before the sneak attack at Pearl Harbor. Those Bibles are distributed. Of course, that happened on a Sunday, and in the back of our Gideon Testaments, there's this place where you can give your heart to Jesus Christ, and you actually confirm that, and you write in your name and the date you did that. Well, when they pulled a lot of those, and we're talking about thousands of men out of the drink, they found in many places in their vest pockets those Bibles, those Testaments, where they had for the first time in their lives, really made a profession of faith to the Lord Jesus Christ. So this is a sensitive thing. It's an important thing, a great tradition in our nation's history that we want to uphold. How can people join in on the fight, so to speak? What can they do? Read your articles. What more can they do to be activists to help keep this flame burning?
I think the most important thing is being informed about these issues, and really all issues of religious freedom across the United States, because this isn't just limited to our military men and women. But the first and most important thing is information, knowing what's going on. I mean, the Navy directive actually went out in June, and we didn't know anything about it until August when they started removing Bibles. But when the public outcry becomes loud enough, when people start writing to people in office, when people start contacting people, and even social media can help things like this, then the Navy, it takes a step back very quickly, and it examines, wait, where did this memo come from? Did it go up to Navy leadership? Has this gone through all the routes that it should? Is this a constitutional violation? And it isn't. And we even see that with congressmen stepping up. So Congressman Forbes of Virginia wrote a letter to the Navy asking these important questions, saying, why did you only respond to the Freedom from Religion Foundation? Why didn't you consult other people who have a vested interest in having sources of comfort for our Navy men and women? And then spelling out the constitutional argument that the Establishment Clause in the Constitution doesn't say scrub the government from all religion. It says don't promote one religion over another. And the Establishment Clause has to be there to safeguard our military men and women's freedom of religion, most importantly.
Well, Leslie, I can remember back in 2009 when they started attacking our MIPS. This was all across the country, distributing Gideon Bibles. What they would do, and you verify if you've seen this pattern before, some folks down in Louisville, Kentucky, complained. They thought that they were being harassed because the Gideon would stand there with an open testament in his hand and let them take it out of his hand on their way through processing, and they wanted to say, well, that's just too much pressure. So you get some people to write complaint letters on behalf of like this FFR, and then they try to use that as a wedge to remove all of the Gideon Bibles.
And it's important to know that the Establishment Clause says nothing like this. In fact, I mentioned earlier that the Supreme Court in Town of Greece v. Galloway, it's a couple years old, but the court said that the Establishment Clause violation is not made out any time a person experiences a sense of affront from an expression of contrary views. So someone doesn't get to shut down someone else's freedom of religion just because they're offended. And especially in this case, with Bibles being in a nightstand drawer, or any religious text being in a nightstand drawer, that's not a cause for offense. That's not forcing someone to assent to someone else's religion. It's very neutral.
Well, Leslie, what about some of these other issues? You remember the Air Force Academy student recently?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, all these situations boil down to that that having just a mention of religion in our government doesn't compel someone else to assent to it. And we shouldn't allow those, like the Freedom from Religion, and I also should mention MAF, which is the Military Association of Atheists and Free Thinkers. They're the ones who ordered the removal of the Opus Dei, which is Latin for God's work, from Air Force Procedure Agency mottos. And they have this sense that anything that mentions God in the military must offend someone else, and that's just not the case.
Well, in basic training, they hear God's name quite a bit, no question. The student at the Air Force Academy wasn't allowed to post a scripture on his door of his dorm room.
On the whiteboard, was it?
Yeah.
Or something like that? Yes. And it's important that we protect the religious freedom of military men and women in the service. And it includes things like this, that they have a right to express themselves, both under freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Well, we just have about 90 seconds, but once again, let people know, how they can get a hold of your articles, and what organizations they can help contribute to continue the good fight.
Okay, I'm with the Heritage Foundation, so anytime you're looking for issues about religious freedom, the Heritage Foundation, we have an entire department dedicated to it. Family Research Council also cares quite a bit about this. They have a website called Speak Up Now, and then, of course, I mentioned Colonel Ron Cruz, who is the head of the Chaplains Alliance. And the chaplains, they're extremely concerned for religious freedom in the military and the religious freedom of all military men and women. And so if you go to chaplainsalliance.org, they should have up-to-date press releases on all this information.
Well, we appreciate you. And, Christian, that's a special thing. I mean, when they want to tell the chaplains in the military you can't pray in the name of Jesus, we're something very, very wrong. And thank you so much once again, Leslie.
Right,
we'd like to have you back on the show.
Wonderful.
God bless.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Appreciate you.
And have a good day.
Yeah, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with our new Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show at any time, any day by calling 832-999-1199. Also, please check out our website, www.conservativecommandosradioshow.com and www.ccrshow.com.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
You know, no one exposes the issues, liberalism, and the mainstream media like the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Our view for conservative values and issues, take positive action to restore them in our country.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers. "9/11. It's a day that will go down in our history as the most horrific and destructive scene ever to happen on American soil. It will also be, for most Americans who witnessed it either up close or simply watched in horror on TV, America, to participate in a national memorial I call the United Action of Prayer this coming 9/11 and every 9/11 from then on. United Action of Prayer is simply every American stopping whatever they are doing for 1 minute at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or pray in memory for the 9/11 victims and their families, and perhaps a prayer of gratitude for living in a country where even 9/11 could not at all weaken the spirit of our great nation. If you're in a crash and have little cash, come to AJ Auto Body. We handle insurance claims fast, and repairs are guaranteed to last at AJ Auto Body. Come check us out, and without a doubt, you'll be satisfied. That's AJ Auto Body, 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. Family owned and operated for 30 years. We are a fully licensed and insured auto repair facility located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. We are your friend in the business. So stop in for a free estimate or call us at 856-251-0096. Check us out on the web at www.ajautobody.net. That's where you'll find our specials, discounts, and coupons. For all your car needs, come to AJ Auto Body, located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. 856-251-0096.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. "Give us freedom" was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening Eastern Time, log on to www.vigilantlibertyradio.us. And for a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos radio show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to www.cprworldwidemedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show at any time, any day, by calling 832-999-1199. Well, our next guest, Jane Robbins, is a senior fellow with the American Principles Project. Her work includes education policy, student privacy, and parental rights issues. She began her career as a labor lawyer for an Atlanta firm, and she's taught legal writing at Emory Law School, presented legal writing workshops for firms in D.C. and Atlanta, and served as a writing consultant for several Atlanta firms. Ms. Robbins is a native of Pendleton, South Carolina. She's a graduate of Harvard Law School and Clemson University. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Jane.
Thank you very much.
I was looking on your website, and you've been doing a lot of work on Common Core as the school children are starting to get back into their desks and their classrooms. But I was interested. I didn't get to see it, but you had one segment that said 10 things people may not know about Common Core. Talk about that.
Well, what people generally don't realize about Common Core is that once your state has adopted it, you have given up control over your education in English language arts and math, and that's only the beginning. The other courses will come along the way. They may not realize that Common Core is essentially a doubling down on what has failed in public education over the last 40 years. They've decided that since the progressive education strategies that they've been using have not worked, they'll just do more of it, and then that will improve education in the schools. We don't think that's going to happen. Common Core standards are, in some respects, experimental. In other respects, they're not experimental. They've been tried before, and they've failed. So there are so many things that are wrong with Common Core, not the least of which is that it is unconstitutional and illegal. But the people who are behind this don't seem to be too concerned about that.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I'm seeing some things happening and shake out a little bit. The National Governors Association, talk about, they may be backing away now.
If they're backing away, I don't know about it. The National Governors Association is one of the two Washington, D.C. trade associations that owns and has copyrighted the Common Core. So if in your state has adopted Common Core, that means that you've now adopted standards that are owned by somebody else. The NGA, the National Governors Association, is the reason that they say this was a state-led effort. They say, well, look, it was the governors who did this. Well, it wasn't the governors who did it. It was a few select people at the NGA, and the standards were essentially written by 5 people, 3 in math and 2 in English language arts. And the NGA is funded by a lot of people who are devoted to keeping Common Core in place, including the federal government and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the NGA is hardly representative of all governors in the nation. I doubt seriously that most of them knew that this was happening when it was happening, but the NGA is now in control of your standards.
Well, now, I read that actually on American Principles website, or one of the websites, and they may be doing rope-a-dope then, because they know it's not popular. And please go ahead, Jane, talk about the unpopularity that you're seeing since we were with you about a year ago. What other states have said no to Common Core?
Things have exploded over the last year. There have been states that have passed legislation to get out of Common Core, including Indiana, Oklahoma, North Carolina. There are a lot of states working on it. In Indiana, what was done was a bait and switch. The legislature voted to withdraw from Common Core, so their State Department of Education just wrote new standards, which coincidentally look a lot like Common Core. The problem is that there is so much money connected with this and so much pressure in the education establishment that you have to watch state education departments like a hawk to make sure that they don't go back to Common Core even when the legislature mandates that they get out of it. So that happened in Indiana. Oklahoma has had a better experience, and there are other states that are working on it right now. There's states all over the country that will have legislation to get out of Common Core. The grassroots movement here has been just remarkable. This has not been a top-down movement. This has been moms in states saying, wait a minute, what's happening here? And so they're the ones who have started to complain. They're the ones who have contacted their legislators and their governors, and they're having an effect.
Well, how about some other states? Are some of the southern states, like your own Georgia, are they starting to back away?
Georgia was going to back away. The bill that was introduced last session in the spring to get out of Common Core passed the Senate easily. It was killed in the House by the governor and the House leadership. So we're still stuck with it. Louisiana is the state where the battle is being pitched most intensely right now, because they actually have lawsuits going on. The governor versus State Department of Education and boards of education versus the governor, because the governor has decided this is not a good idea and he wants to get out of it, and that it was illegally implemented to start with. So Louisiana is just going round and round, and we're watching that one very closely. But North Carolina, the legislature passed a bill to have a review of the standards, as did South Carolina, and that review is going on right now. So the activists, the people who are determined to reclaim state control over education, are keeping a close eye on what's going on with the rewrites of the standards in those states to make sure that what happened in Indiana doesn't happen there.
Speaking of Indiana, my state, and been watching this issue for a couple of years, working hard against it. What is that deal about Park? It looks like that Glenda Ritz, our superintendent, she has not officially said no to Park. Can you comment on that? We have about a minute before our first break.
I'm a little bit hazy about what's going on in Indiana with Park. Park is the assessment, the Common Core aligned assessment, and Indiana withdrew as a governing state of Park. But it's my understanding that it did not completely withdraw from Park, as some other states, such as Georgia, have done. So I think Indiana is technically still tied to Park, which is a problem.
Yeah, I just got an email or a message from Heather Crossan, and some of these kids are walking home with Common Core textbooks here in Indiana still. So
well, yes, Heather is one of the heroines of this movement. She and Aaron Tuttle in Indiana really started the movement. They sparked it, and nothing has really changed in Indiana, because the people who decided that they were going to have Common Core, no matter what the people thought, determined that that's what's going to happen, and they've essentially still got it, so they can still use the substandard textbooks because they didn't change the standards enough to really reclaim Indiana control.
Well, we're coming up against a hard break. Can we just ask you, Jane, to hang in here for a couple of minutes? We're going to do our commercials and get right back and talk about this topic.
Okay.
And if you'd like to hear rebroadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening, Eastern Time, log on to www.vigilantlibertyradio.us. And for a rebroadcast of yesterday's Concerted Commandos radio show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to www.cprworldwidemedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. Now you can listen to the Concerted Commandos radio show at any time, any day, by calling 832-999-1199.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
Listen up, Christians. God has a couple of questions. Is it okay with you that atheists kick Christ out of schools and government? Godstickers.com. Is it okay with you if atheists take over America and mock God? Godstickers.com. Are you ready to fight back and unleash the gospel of Jesus Christ to 30,000 drivers per year on the streets of America? Then get a car magnet from Godstickers.com. Atheists can run from God's Word on Sunday, but they still have to read your bumper on Monday. All car magnet sales donated to MissingPets.com. Are you ready to make America do a U-turn? Visit GodStickers.com today and unleash the Word of God on America's highways. GodStickers.com car magnets. God's Word on the street.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with JD and Rick. And if you'd like to hear a repeat broadcast of today's show at 9 p.m. this evening, log on to vigilantlibertyradio.us. And at 5 p.m. when our live broadcast ends, if you'd like to hear a repeat of last Friday's show, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. And don't forget, you can now hear the Conservative Commandos radio show at any time, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is is Jane Robbins. Leslie was our last guest, but it's Jane Robbins. She's a senior fellow at the American Principles Project. Jane, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Sure. Happy to do it.
Jane, did I hear you correctly that Common Core is unconstitutional and illegal?
Yes.
How is that so?
It's unconstitutional because the Constitution does not give the federal government any authority in the area of education. And although the Common Core standards were not created by the federal government, it has been enforced by the federal government through tying federal money to it. So if states wanted to be able to compete for federal grants, they had to adopt Common Core. Mm-hmm. So by doing that, the federal government is not only acting beyond the Constitution, but it's also acting in violation of 3 federal statutes. There are 3 statutes that prohibit the federal government from supervising, directing, or controlling curriculum. And through what the federal government is doing with the standards and what it's doing especially with the assessments, because it's funding these nationwide assessments, that will supervise, direct, or control curriculum, because what is on those assessments is what will be taught in the classroom. So yes, it violates the Constitution and statutory law.
Has it been taken to court? You know, I know all over the country where the more and more people are finding out about Common Core, the less and less people like it. But has it gone to courts?
No, it hasn't gone to court, and the reason is that it's very difficult to sue over something like this because you have to have standing. You can't just have a parent or a taxpayer who's upset. You have to have someone who has legal standing to bring the case, and that would require someone such as the Attorney General of a state, that kind of thing. And so far, we haven't found anybody who's really interested in doing that. Plus, litigation takes years. We don't have years. We need to get the legislators to act now, to stand up and do the right thing and help get their states out of Common Core.
Very interestingly, when you were speaking with J.D., you said that the liberal establishment have been trying these principles over the last 40 years. It's not worked, so they're doubling down. And I wanted to ask you something. Jane, do you know the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
There you go. There you go. So, Jane, could you talk a little bit about some of the public outrage that you have noticed around the country about Common Core?
Well, when we talk to people, especially in this political season, we talk to candidates who go around the state. We heard, for example, from a candidate for the Senate in Georgia that there were two issues that came up everywhere they went. One was Obamacare, the other was Common Core. So it's a huge issue. That's what happened in Indiana. The Republican establishment up there was monolithically in favor of Common Core until they got the poll numbers and realized that the base was slipping away from them because of this. It's a huge issue. It's going to have national implications. There are still a lot of more establishment Republicans who are clinging to it and are claiming that it will be good and everybody should just quiet down and let the experts do their job, but the grassroots don't seem too willing to let the so-called experts continue to do what they've been doing, which hasn't been very successful.
Jane, we broadcast from WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and also around the world on the internet. I don't want to make this a local thing, but could you give us an idea of the status of Common Core in the states of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and what's happening in other states, maybe other regions in the country?
We have not had a lot of activity in those states, and to tell you the truth, the guy I work with in Washington and I are sort of dividing up the states, and I haven't done a lot in Pennsylvania. He has been to a couple of programs that have been done there, and I know that there's an active anti-Common Core group in Pennsylvania. The problem is states that are completely dominated by the Democrats have less activity than states that at least have Republican legislatures. Because a lot of Republican governors are bad on this issue, but there are legislators who are doing the right thing. So it's going to be a kind of a tough row to hoe up in the states that you just mentioned because of the dominance of Democrats. But I can tell you that even in states that are very Democratic, such as New York, the anti-Common Core movement is huge, and in New York especially, it's not a partisan issue. It's not right versus left. It is the teachers' unions up there. The teachers are just in open revolt over Common Core. So it's something that really crosses ideological lines, and if the people in the other states you mentioned can get together with people from even other who may not be their ideological comrades on other issues, but there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who see what's wrong with Common Core.
Hey, Jane, this is J.D. Have you done a little review, I think, of Republican presidential candidates and where they stand on Common Core? Can you let our people know?
Well, the candidate or potential candidate who is Mr. Common Core is Jeb Bush, obviously, from Florida. Florida and Indiana, I would think, were the two sort of ground zero states for Common Core. And he is very, very in favor of it. He's been very active in promoting it and trying to get states to stick with it. And that's going to hurt him. That's going to hurt him badly in the primaries if he decides to run, because he's sort of in a corner now. He can't really come out against it without looking like just an opportunist, since he has been so intensely in favor of it, and a lot of people, especially we work with a lot of people in Florida who are just outraged with him. As far as other candidates go, of course Bobby Jindal in Louisiana is very opposed to Common Core and is fighting the battle down there. Ted Cruz is very opposed to Common Core. Marco Rubio is very opposed. Mike Huckabee is in favor, and that's disappointing. We haven't had a chance to talk to him, but it could have something to do with the fact that he was with the NGA at the time these standards were developed and the time they came out. So you can't really look at a candidate and say, oh, well, this man is very conservative, therefore he will be against Common Core. It doesn't necessarily work out that way.
How about congressional effort to defund Common Core? If we can get the Senate back, is there a chance can we cut it off at the root through Congress? Talk about that.
Well, that's a possibility, certainly, and more congressmen are starting to take a look at it, because for a long time we really couldn't get much interest in the Congress because they all said, well, this is a state issue and this is not really something that the federal people are involved in. But as you say, the funding is coming from the federal government, so if that could be cut off, then that would be certainly an avenue worth exploring. So it's very, very important that people send people to the Senate and to the House in November who are opposed to Common Core and willing to fight the U.S. Department of Education on it.
What can parents do? How should they get involved against Common Core?
The first thing they need to do is to educate themselves, and they can do that. There are so many good state organizations that are fighting Common Core, and you can usually find a Facebook page for, Stop Common Core or whatever. But they can also go to a site called truthinamericaneducation.com, and that's a very good national clearinghouse that keeps up with everything that's going on and has a lot of information, state-by-state information. So that's truthinamericaneducation.com. And then they need to let their voices be heard. They need to call their state legislators. They need to call their governors, call their state school superintendents, especially in states where the school superintendent is elected. Call their members of their state school board, and they need to watch carefully at what is coming home with their children. They need to look at the curriculum. They need to look at the lessons, especially the weird math lessons that are coming in through Common Core. And when they see something they don't like, they need to make their views known at the school level, get together with other parents. There's safety in numbers if you're worried about your child being singled out because mom was too loud. Get together with some other parents and complain. But the problem, of course, with Common Core is that there's not a lot the local teachers or school can do because this is all being dictated from above. But they need to call their state legislators primarily and let them know that they want out. And a state senator in Georgia told me that if 5 people call his office, he knows it's a huge issue. If 2 people come to his office, he knows it's enormous because state legislators don't get that much contact from people. So it doesn't take a lot of effort to let the legislators know that this is a big issue.
Hey, Jane, we only have about a minute left. Could you tell me the most egregious part or the most egregious part of or example of Common Core? You said you got to watch what your kids bring home.
They need to watch the math lessons because Common Core doesn't teach the standard algorithm in the early years. They wait until later after our international competitors after their kids have already learned it. They need to keep that in their mind. And Common Core, they need to watch anything that's coming in with digital learning. The digital learning lessons are supposed to be transformative. Parents need to keep an eye on what's going on with that.
Hey, Jane Robbins, we got to run. We want to thank you for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Where can people follow you? Got a website?
Yes, they can go to, I tell you what, the best thing to do would be to go to truthinamericaneducation.com or also because I'm in Georgia, so we do georgia.stopcommoncore.com.
The American Principles Project, they have a website?
Yes, AmericanPrinciplesProject.org.
Jane Robbins, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless. Hey, JD, we're getting up against the end of our show. I want to thank our guest today, Bob Dorigo-Jones from the Center for America, Leslie Ford of the Heritage Foundation, and Jane Robbins, Senior Fellow at the American Principles Project.
We did kind of make
I'm hearing something, John. What am I hearing there? And JD, I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host. I want to thank Mr. John Forsyth, Jr. for doing a great job working the boards. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
God bless.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Huge thanks to our co-hosts,
thank you, JD.
contributors, patrons, callers, and our friends at WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460, where we broadcast live every Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 to 4 p.m. Central. Look for us on the internet at www.ccrshow.com. Until next time, we are the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
This is 1360 AM.
WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.